Let's go to Australia and speak to Eyal Mayroz, who's a professor of international peace at the University of Sydney. Eyal, thank you so much for your time. I want to start with a slightly counterintuitive question. Do weapons help promote peace?
Well, they are in effect trying to reduce fear rather than improve peace. So I don't think that's the answer. There's certainly a proliferation of weapons around the world. We need to also actually account for some of the differences. For example, is it defensive or offensive systems that are being manufactured? The increasing costs of developing and manufacturing more sophisticated weapon systems. So the picture is not as clear. Obviously, the points that you've mentioned about the Ukraine, about the US-China relations, what is happening in the South China Sea in relation to Taiwan, and even in the Middle East are all contributing. But I'd say that we also need to take a step back and look more clearly at the global system of collective security that was created in 1945 and how it has been failing again and again to meet the demands. So instead of having a global system of collective security, we're seeing an alliance-based one, which is belongs to the privileged few. And this is what you see in relation to Europe, the increasing militarization there, and certainly not contributing to peace.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, for many years now, people have been wondering whether the UN Security Council is actually practically defunct because of the veto power that those 5 permanent members have. You're kind of alluding to it already, Eyal, so let me give you some analysis and see what you think of this one. This is from a former US Air Force veteran, Patrick Fox, who's now a military analyst. And it kind of mirrors a bit of what you say. He says humanity hasn't evolved, that the international order only survives as long as it's defended by force, and that the age of great power conflicts is far from over. I mean, we're in the 21st century, but nothing seems to have changed as far as Patrick Fox is concerned.
Well, I beg to differ because I don't think our security would depend on force. I think our security would depend on such things as strengthening the global system, strengthening the United Nations, creating stronger treaties that will try to restrict the manufacturing and trade in both conventional and unconventional weapons. I think the media has a role to play both negatively and positively because the media, the globalized media, increasingly globalized, is certainly increasing fear around the world. And when citizens of the world are afraid and there is such uncertainty, our leaders, have very little to help alleviate those fears other than to create more weapons and join the arm race which we're seeing. I think this is not the right way to deal with the risks that we're seeing around the world these days.
How much might it be about greed? How much about making money? About the economic benefits of manufacturing and then selling weapons? You know, this issue that's going on at the moment with the European Union having promised to buy ammunition on behalf of Ukraine and then send it to Kiev. Josep Borrell, the foreign policy chief of the EU, says we're still disagreeing, and the disagreement appears to be EU nations hoping that most of the procurement they make is from within the EU. In other words, they keep the money amongst themselves and don't give it to any outside powers.
Well, there's certainly influence over decision making in different governments by this industrial security complex, as it is known to be. How influential they are, I think it varies from one country to another, from one conflict to another, but certainly more transparency in decision making is very important. On the other hand, in terms of the leadership, we need to understand that there are 2 aspects to their decision making. One is a capability of in this case, maybe an enemy, and the other is intent. So if, for example, in the case of Australia, Australia has a fear that has been elevated by the media recently of Chinese invasion of Australia, And so the existing government is going to spend 368 billion dollars on a number of nuclear submarines that would be ready only in 20 years or so. And so we need to ask, what is the story behind that? And capabilities are one element, intent is the other. But even if there's no intent, leaders are afraid that the intent to attack Australia will come later. And by that time, it will be too late, because it takes such a long time to manufacture those submarines. So you see here the challenges that the leaders are facing, but certainly trust and peace and strong institution are the way to go, rather than increased arms race.
Swords into plowshares, Eyal. Thank you so much indeed. Eyal Mayroz in Sydney, Australia.